Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanallah. Okay, guys, mashallah, this is certainly relevant. It's concerning the polls. We've um, been documenting this for a considerable time now since we believe the arrival of the An-Najm al-Thaqib star system and its merging within our solar system and its binary star, which is the brown dwarf star, and that's a system in and of itself which we've discussed again and explored at length. At any rate, we had discussed that our poles are shifting, and not only are they shifting incrementally, but in fact they're shifting exponentially. This is a white paper, by the way, and I'll provide you a link to this, which was published on the 21st of March, subhanallah, which discusses the world magnetic model and the gridded variation, which is moving at a increasing pace, at a very considerable pace. I mean, for those of you who are familiar with the exponential growth, as you can maybe see over here in the graph, and then what we've been documenting so far, and this is why we've been seeing the sun, and you guys have been part of that journey when I used to document the sun moving on the horizon, almost like a pendulum from one direction to another, which was quite, again, unusual and not necessarily documented and had very little to do with the winter solstice. I mean, although the winter solstice does have a bearing on how the sun is positioned on our horizon, but not as significantly as the sort of changes that we've been documenting and experiencing of late, and that's because of the arrival of this system and it tugging on our poles. How does this bear on the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I believe that it's going to bring the hadith of the sun rising from the west into fruition. But not only that, when it does capture our poles significantly as it exits our system and flips them, well, there's no reason, or when it even comes closer to us, there's no reason why we can't experience, why we wouldn't experience the three great landslides spoken of by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It seems the asbab for it is here, subhanallah. Okay, and whenever Allah subhanahu wa taala wills. Again, moving on, what you'll see over here, and you'll see exactly where I'm going with this now. This is NASA. Again, this is all peer-reviewed, so I'm not just sharing with you newspaper articles from mainstream media or even like mainstream tabloids or serious tabloids, for instance, as The Independent or The Guardian, The Telegraph, and so forth. But rather, this is from NASA themselves, who consider themselves the authority in all of this. This won't make at least the ulama ikram it won't reach them. You won't have access to this sort of information unless you actually seek it out, subhanallah. And because of my interest in this system, its arrival and its effects on us, subhanallah, on alami wujud, as well as, I guess, it bringing into fruition certain hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam concerning akhir zaman. I've always kept abreast with this and the updates significantly. And what you'll see over here is the model for landslides and the threats. And they're taking this very seriously. They know these changes are happening, subhanAllah. So we need to be muhtad, because certainly it's got everything to do with our deen.
Deadly landslides can happen in the space of minutes, but factors that cause landslides can be detected ahead of time and from space. With satellites, NASA scientists have developed a new model to estimate where and when landslides may strike around the world using real-time information. The model, known as Landslide Hazard Assessment for Situational Awareness, estimates which regions have a moderate or high chance of landslides every 30 minutes. For the first time, potential landslide activity can be seen globally. These regions are identified by several factors. First, the model uses the Global Precipitation Measurement Mission to track rainfall, the most widespread and frequent trigger of landslides worldwide. Then the model evaluates which areas with high rainfall are also prone to landslides using a susceptibility map. The regions highlighted in this map may have a combination of steep slopes, deforestation, a weak bedrock, road
subhanallah,
cause landslides can be detected ahead.
Subhanallah, that could have been looked at in light of hadith, in that how those areas, maybe those regions, have any sort of relationship or parallels with hadith about the three landslides in the west, the east, and the Arabian Peninsula, and whether their graphs are accurate in that regard. Subhanallah, that's maybe something that I would look at. while studying this, subhanAllah, in sharp contrast or in contrast to hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Are also prone to landslides using a susceptibility map. The regions highlighted in this map may have a combination of steep slopes, deforestation, a weak bedrock, road construction, or are near earthquake fault zones. Factors that make land more prone to landslides and heavy rains. Scientists ran the model looking back 15 years to determine when and where potential landslide activity tends to happen around the world, or in essence, when landslide season exists in different regions. When this model is compared to NASA's database of landslide reports dating back to 2007, similar patterns emerge. For example,
Subhanallah, did you hear the date there? Dating back to 2007, similar patterns emerge. And my position always has been that my dream started in 2007, and according to what I understood from that dream, is that that system was here, right? And it's interesting that these patterns have been emerging since then. That's just, again, maybe perhaps something for our consideration. Wallahu alam.
potential landslide activity peaks from February to April in Peru, whereas in Taiwan, the peak occurs in May and June. But not every landslide is seen or reported. The model also reveals landslide-prone regions that currently don't have any reported fatalities in the database. Scientists will use the NASA model in combination with landslide reports to improve our understanding of where and when landslides may occur. Creating a global picture on this pervasive hazard will not only help vulnerable populations, but better inform disaster response and mitigation.
Now, they've already got some sort of a program in the United States of America. Earlier on, maybe perhaps during this research, whilst I was sharing with the ulama ikram, I did share quite a lot of content concerning those drills as well. Moving on from that very quickly, you've got new data confirming the increase of frequency in extreme weather events. Now, again, as far as I'm concerned, my position always has been that this system is the asbab through which we're experiencing that because of its interaction with the sun, and the sun then reacting, and then these great solar mass ejections that are Earth-directed, which then, I guess, stimulate our ionosphere, our atmosphere, and create these solar storms. But also what you need to understand, and this is something for our ulama ikram to consider, is that they also have technology with which they can manipulate or even catalyze and direct the weather, the extreme weather, as it gets aggravated and stimulated when these CMEs happen, when they hit our atmosphere and stimulate the ionosphere. What that does in turn is excite the climate, and what they do, they seed it using nano particulates and that sort of technology. They seed the clouds with that. So you'll see that quite often you'll see the planes are flying above the fluffy clouds, subhanAllah, the fluffy candy sort of clouds there, subhanAllah, from the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you see a thick blanket of a thin blanket above the atmosphere, that is artificially induced, and they're doused with all barium, aluminum, strontium, and other particulates, which are then seeded into the clouds, and then they use magnetic technology, which we've again discussed, and I've shared with you guys content on that on the vlogs, to steer and redirect the strength of the climate, in other words, the storms, or even rainfall, subhanAllah, which is interesting again, because we understand that the Jalal will be able to manipulate the weather, subhanAllah, and he'll cause it to rain where he pleases, and he'll cause droughts where he pleases. It seems that technology has been refined as we speak. So when I say, and you might have noticed some level of contradiction when I maintain that the Earth weather is related to the climatic and the magnetic influence of these celestial bodies that have entered our solar system. I still maintain that position, but in addition to that, what I say is they have the ability to then manipulate that influence and direct it, subhanAllah, to their advantage, and this is how they're doing it. It's not rocket science. They've been seeding the clouds for a long time now, using nanoparticulates and then using magnetic technology to redirect those clouds or even stop them in their tracks or make them dissipate, subhanallah. So this is all stuff that's readily available and could be researched. And again, it just increases our understanding so that we don't become the azmat of the fitn of Dajjal don't overwhelm us, subhanallah, and we understand exactly how or what is happening. And inshallah ta'ala, that will give us some sort of level of clarity as we approach these very difficult times. Anyway, Jazakallah khairan wa ahsanul jaza for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I'll share the links to this as well for our beloved ulama ikram to maybe perhaps have a gander at and read. And you can read all these articles and what they've got to say. They're again peer reviewed and they were shared from the 20th of March onwards. So they're very recent, subhanAllah. And all of them, again, it seems like has very little to do with climate change in the sense of pollution being the asbab. Rather, that's, like I said, a smoke screen and a diversion from the real asbab, which is the system of An-Najm Thaqib. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Jazakallahu khairan wa ahsanul jaza for your time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.